This week, the HPT crowns our newest champion from the Golden Gates Casino in Black Hawk, Colorado, just outside of Denver. Over 650 players built a mountainous prize pool worth over $1 million. As always, we started with the Elite 9 from the field, and this week the road to the championship continues with 6 players competing for the top prize and a championship worth over $235,000.
This is the HPT.
Sit right down, put on your poker face, you with the big dogs now. Better bring your best game, talk trash all you want. To me it's all the same, you won't leave with much when you come in second place. And I'm the one with the stack showing 7 to the jack. Gon' cry to your mama cause I'm sending you back. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. Last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand.
From the foothills of the Colorado Rockies, we are at the Golden Gates Casino and Poker Parlor in Black Hawk, Colorado, where this week we will crown a new champion and award a monstrous prize pool of over $235,000 to our next HPT champion. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the HPT. I am Fred Bevel. The pretty lady to my left is one of the best poker pros in the world, Miss Maria Ho.
716 players began, and this week we continue down the road to a championship with the final 6 players. The prize pool once again eclipsed $1 million, making the payouts at this stage of the tournament huge. Each decision these players make from this point on could mean thousands of dollars.
Keith Love started this final table as our chip leader, and he continues as the leader this week. Maria, besides having an awesome R&B name, Keith also has been playing pretty solid poker.
He sure has, but it's still anyone's game here. Richard Monroe has hit a few hands to chip up, and the others are just a double up away from leaping to the top spot. Now that we're short-handed, well-timed aggression and how they play their chip position will be the deciding factors on who ends up on top.
A lot of poker yet to be played, a lot of money left to be divvied up. Let's take a look at the payouts and the chip counts and get right to the action.
First place is $235,494. That is a lot to be playing for. The remaining 6 players are going to at least take home a little over $37,000 for their efforts here today.
Great payday for all of these players. Here's where we stand as we speak in the chip counts.
Keith Love is still the chip leader at this final table with just over $6 million. Richard Monroe is right on his heels with a little over $5.6 million. Matthew and David are the short stacks with about 22 big blinds each, but they definitely still have a little play left.
Blinds at this final table right now are 50 and 100,000 with a 10,000 chip ante. As we start this week 6-handed, we will have a champion before this is over. Matt Colvin with Ace King is going to open the pot to $225,000. His action folds all the way around the table. We are on Ian Glissenfer right now.
Matt has about 22 big blinds, meaning he is planning to go with this Ace King, I believe. Just see what kind of action he's going to get.
Keith Love has Queen 10 offsuit in his hand.
Keith is going to make.
And he is going to see a flop from the big blind. Why not?
Queen 10 is live against Matthew's hand here.
First flop of the night.
Flop is 8-3-9 rainbow. Keith hasn't improved with his Queen 10, and he's going to check it over to Matthew, who I believe is going to c-bet. Keith does have a gut shot. I'm not sure how far he's willing to go with it, though, seeing that Matthew doesn't have a whole lot of chips behind.
Matthew makes the continuation bet to $325,000, and Keith does quickly make this call. See if he's setting up a move on a later street here. The turn is a 3 of hearts.
And it looks like Keith does indeed want to make a move on this pot. It looks like he's planning on leading this turn.
And he does, makes it $550,000. And right behind him, Matthew quickly goes all in.
And Keith is asking for a call, but I don't believe that he's going to call here with Queen High. I think Matthew was thinking this board was safe enough for Ace King and also hoping that Keith could fold a hand like an 8 here. I think Matthew has correctly figured out that Keith probably wouldn't play trip 3s like this. And Keith is going to fold. Matthew's going to take this pot down.
Give Keith some credit, though. Floated the flop to set up a play on the turn. It just didn't work out for him. As we move on to the next hand, Ian Glissenfer will be under the gun. With those glasses, he looks like a young Tom Cruise, like Risky Business era Tom Cruise. And here we go. It's my hand. Mom and Dad make an appearance. Keith Love will raise, as you should, with the nuts.
He makes it 260,000 to go, a little more than 2.5xing it.
And Richard Monroe twiddling his fingers, thinking what to do. Haven't seen his hand yet. Probably not worth it. He's going to fold. And so does Matthew. Now we're over to David Goodfriend in the 1 seat.
And now on to Alex in the big blind. He looks down at King Jack suited. I imagine he's going to defend here with this hand. And wow, for once, King Queen in a dominating position.
You know, I think you like King Queen a little bit more than you let on. You're just kind of giving me a hard time because you know it's my favorite.
There may or may not be some truth to that. And he does indeed call from the big blind, and the flop is 6-10 Jack Rainbow.
Boy, King Queen not running well at this final table as Alex hits top pair.
However, Keith does have an open-ended straight draw.
See how Alex decides to choose this. If he's going to donk bet, he does not. He checks over to Keith. Keith likely to make a continuation bet here. I learned the term donk bet from my friend next to me, Maria Ho. It's when you lead out into a pre-flop raiser.
And sometimes it could be a donk move, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a donk move.
Keith does c-bet to 370,000. Doesn't look like he's stacking calling chips. Yep, those are raisin chips you just put out there. Makes it 820,000.
Raise 6 to 820.
I'm all in.
And just like that, Keith 3-bets him all in. Well, as you just pointed out, Maria, you don't want to play a big pot with just one pair, and that's exactly what's happening. This pot is huge. Keith is going to the turn in the river behind, but he's got outs. Let's see what happens. Alex's tournament life on the line here.
And the turn is the 4 of spades, and that is a great card for Alex as it gives him a backdoor flush draw, meaning it takes out the queen of spades from Keith's outs, as well as the ace of spades and the 9 of spades.
And the river is a meaningless 4. Keith could not hit one of the outs, and Alex is going to scoop a huge pot.
And with that hand, Keith is going to relinquish his chip lead here at this final table, moving Alex into the 2nd spot after that huge pot.
Dynamics are changing. Action is heating up. This is going to be fun to watch as we play down to a champion.
Welcome back to the HPT here in beautiful Black Hawk, Colorado at the Golden Gates Casino and Poker Parlor.
And after that huge hand, we finally have a new chip leader at this final table, Richard Monroe, with a little over 5.6 million. Keith Love has moved down to the number 3 spot. David Goodfriend is our short stack.
Blinds continuing at 50 and 100,000 with a 10,000 chip ante. Alex finally has his chips organized as he's holding a monster stack, and he's also got a monster hand with pocket queens.
Alex raises to 200.
And he's just going to do a happy little min raise here. That seems to be the new thing in poker. Why 3x it when you can just min raise?
And I think the reason for that is people are realizing that there's a lot of skill in post-flop play, and you don't want to raise so big that you scare out any action. And also, the truth is you can accomplish pretty much the same thing with a min raise as you can with a 3x raise. So why not risk less chips to get the same thing done?
Well, Ian flats with pocket 9s, and here comes Keith Love with 10 jack. He's going to make the call.
And I think with Ian's stack and the position, sometimes he could opt to 3-bet there, but calling is fine as well.
3-handed as we go to the flop, and it is 9-5 jack. Ian hits middle set.
And this hand is going to have a lot of action because, as you can see, Alex still has an overpair to the board. Keith has flopped top pair, so I could imagine that there's a lot of chips going into this pot.
Perfect storm developing for Ian here, and he is going to bet his hand, makes it 325,000 to go, and Keith quickly calls.
And I feel like Alex has no choice but to raise. The flop seems kind of innocuous. He doesn't really want to take this 3 ways to the turn.
And those are raising chips. He's getting ready. And it's going to be big. Here it comes. 925,000 is the bet. That's the biggest bet we've seen at this final table so far. And Ian, why not get them all in the middle here? That's going to shake Keith off the hand. Alex quickly calls with the overpair to the board, and he's going to see he ran into a whole bunch of mess.
Unfortunately for Alex, Ian flop middle set, and Alex has an overpair. He has no choice but to go with that hand against Ian's stack.
Alex not done yet with 2 streets left to come. The turn is a king, and Maria, things just got real interesting.
Alex has a couple more outs now, as a 10 would give him a straight, and he still has a queen to make a higher set.
The river is a queen, and just like that, set over set, eliminating Ian Glycifer from this final table. And look at that, class and poise from this young man. He shakes the hands and says, good game.
For a 24-year-old, I think that he took that bad beat very, very well. So hats off to him. Just an unfortunate way to finish this final table.
Our 5th consecutive $1 million prize pool here at the Golden Gates Casino. While we were here this week, we sat down with the last champion from this final table. Her name is Teresa Hemingway. We wanted to catch up to see how life has changed since adding HPT champion to her poker resume.
Hey, I'm Teresa Hemingway, and I'm the defending champion here in Blackhawk at Golden Gates Casino. I see a lot of people recognizing me, and it's flattering. However, sometimes I have to play like I know people all the time, which I don't completely know, but it's fine for the notoriety, and it has changed my life, and it's just a great experience. The HPT is awesome. I would tell people that haven't played HPT just to come try it. Anybody can win. You don't have to be a professional. I obviously do it as a hobby. If I can do it, anybody can, and I really encourage women to start trying as well.
With every knockout comes a new set of challenges as the dynamics change at this final table. Don't go anywhere. We are in scenic Blackhawk, Colorado at the Golden Gates Casino and Poker Parlor. These guys know how to play poker in the Rocky Mountains. Let's get right back to the action.
So with the elimination of Ian Glycifer in 6th place, we now have a new chip leader, Alex Greenblatt, with 7.8 million. Richard Monroe follows him with 5 million, and David Goodfriend is now our short stack with 14 big blinds.
David gonna have to make a move or get lucky really quick. This is his 2nd final table, back-to-back final tables. He took 6th in Indiana. Action in this hand starts with David Goodfriend. He quickly folds. We're over to Alex now, our new chip leader.
He looks down at Queen 10 suited. Looks like he's going to come in for a raise.
Alex is going to raise it to 250.
And that is exactly what he does. Makes it $250,000. Richard looks down at not a lot. See what he decides to do here. Smartly folds. Now we are over to Matt Colvin.
Over to Matt.
And Matt is going to 3-bet here with ace-jack, like you thought Richard should have done in the last hand. He's going to make it $575,000.
575.
And he's putting the pressure on the chip leader right here.
And I think if I were Alex here, I would probably just flat this 3-bet. Queen 10 of clubs plays very well post-flop, and he also has position against Matt.
He takes your advice. He makes the call. So Matthew going to the flop slightly ahead.
All right, Ginger, let's go and see the flop.
And the flop is 7-7-3 rainbow.
No help to either player here. Matthew still ahead with ace high. He took the betting lead pre-flop with a 3-bet. Let's see if he continues here.
That's a fairly good board for ace high.
It's a bet of 600.
And this street, he will fire $650,000.
And his bet's a little on the larger side. I think he really wants to find out if Alex has anything he could continue with or not. Matthew's probably just looking to take it down right here.
Well, I can't see Alex continuing on in this hand. He's got no pair, no draw. But what do I know? He's the chip leader who's staging chips. He must have a plan. He makes the call.
I don't think that's a bad call by Alex. I think what he's trying to do is just float Matthew here. I think Matthew's range is a little bit more defined here than Alex's, so it's pretty easy for Alex to try to take this pot away on a later street. and the turn is an 8 of spades, and now Matthew quickly checks, and I think it just opened the door for Alex to take this pot like I thought he would, but he does check behind, which now I find it hard for him to win this pot without betting the turn there.
Yeah, it looked like there was a wide open door for Alex to make a play after floating the flop, but he let it go. And the 5 of clubs on the river, again, no help to either player here. Matt checks over. He has the best hand.
And I think if Alex wants to win this pot, he's going to have to make his bet on the bigger side, probably 1.7 million.
Nowhere near 1.7. He bets about half of that, 850,000.
I think with 850,000 and the way that he played that hand, Matthew might just look him up here with ace high. I think the plan for Alex would have been to bet the turn and bet the river if he wants to win this pot.
Well, 850,000 into a almost 3.5 million chip pot isn't a whole lot for Matthew to make this call. It would be pretty amazing to me with just ace high.
Wow.
And he is going to lay it down.
The thing is, Matt only has to be right there 1 every 4 times to make that call correct. And I think there's a good chance that he would be right with ace high 1 out of 4 times. So that's kind of why I would like to see Alex bet on the bigger side, but he did get Matt to lay down the best hand.
Alex playing with confidence now. This time he has ace 3 in his hand. As Doyle Brunson said, you got to play the rush to know when the rush is over. So he's going to keep on going, raises it to 250,000. Keith quickly folds. We're over to Richard, and he's got suited connectors.
And you always see Richard take a moment to think about playing those suited connectors, and sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. But for now, Richard is better off staying away from playing all of the suited connected hands.
David Goodfriend calls from the big blind, just 130 more to see a flop here. He's got 4 or 5 of hearts, hoping for a big hand. He's got the short stack looking to chip up here.
The flop is king, ace, 5, rainbow. David's flop bottom pair, but that's not going to do him any good because Alex has top pair.
David checks over to Alex.
Don't think that was the flop David's looking for, and I don't think he should be investing any more chips into this pot. Oh, but Alex is going to get a little tricky and check back here.
I like it. I like it. The turn is a deuce of hearts.
That's going to be an action card because now David has a gut shot straight draw and a flush draw, and yep, he's going to put all the chips in.
It's not an all-in bet. I need to get that.
He didn't actually go all in. He has his 1/5,000 chip over his cards.
1.15.
So he made a 1.15.
I think Alex might have put in enough to put him all in.
Well, I don't know. This is David's chance to get away from it. Oh, he is going to make the call.
And Alex is going to see that he made a good check back, but David did pick up a lot more outs on the turn. So now David's looking for a heart, a 5, or a 3 in order to win.
His tournament life lies in the hands of Lady Luck now. Let's see if the river will save Mr. Goodfriend or if it will send him to the rail in 5th place.
And the river is the 6 of spades, and it is not going to do it for David Goodfriend. He is going to finish here in 5th place, and Alex is going to add some more chips to that chip leading stack.
Congrats to David, a second final table in Indiana. He took 6th. Here he took 5th. By my math, if he plays 4 more, he will be a champion.
That's another elimination here at this HPT final table, coming to you from Black Hawk, Colorado at the Golden Gates Casino and Poker Parlor. Only 4 players remain at this final table, and when we get back from this commercial break, we'll pick up the action. You're watching the HPT.
Thanks for coming back to the HPT. As we eliminate players, the pressure mounts for the ones that are left as they compete for the championship. Let's get back to the final table.
Alex Greenblatt is just steadily increasing his chip lead. He has over 11.6 million now. Richard Monroe is behind him with 6.3 million. Matthew Colvin and Keith Love are the shorter stacks at the table. Lines are still 60,000, 120,000 with a 15K ante.
Next up to bat is Richard Monroe. He's got Queen 7 suited. He's going to fold. Now over to Matt Colvin, sporting the Golden Gates hat And he's going to raise it up with ace deuce, and uh-oh. The chip leader, Alex, is woken up with big slick, the best drawing hand in poker.
And this is definitely a interesting confrontation considering they are blind versus blind. Let's see if Alex wants to slow play this or if he's going to 3-bet Matthew.
Looks like he chose the 3-betting option. He raises it to 745,000.
4-5 by Alex.
I'm all in.
And whoa, Matt quickly goes all in. Alex makes the snap call.
And I don't think that that was a good all-in by Matt because once Alex 3-bets to 745,000, Matthew no longer has much fold equity.
Heavily dominated here going to the flop. It brings 7, king, ace, 2 hearts.
Matthew's gonna need running deuces or running hearts in order to win this hand.
With a 7 of spades, Matthew is now drawing dead to a chop. He needs to see another 7 for both of these guys to have a full house. It's not going to happen as the 3 of diamonds comes on the river, and back-to-back knockouts at this final table now has us 3-handed.
Matthew Colvin, making his first HPT final table here, is gonna go home with 4th place prize.
Good money for a weekend of poker, but now the bubble is popped. We are in the big money, 235,000 going to one of these 3 men. Right now, advantage Alex in the 2 seat as he's the chip leader. In this hand, he has 7-5.
All in. All in is
And Alex is gonna go all in with 7-5, and Keith calls with ace-9. I like Alex's aggression, but I do feel like there are some hands you can fold from the small blind into the big blind when the big blind has about 10 big blinds or less, and 7-5 for me personally would have been one of those hands I folded.
Ace-9 of hearts.
Well, Alex is gambling here, trying to eliminate Keith and get heads up with Richard Monroe. Keith hoping ace-9 is going to be good through the river. Here we go with the flop.
The flop is Jack 3-10, all spades. Alex does have the 7 of spades though, so Keith definitely has a sweat even though he's still ahead with ace high.
Now I'll stand up.
Keith Love hoping to find love on the turn in the river to keep him at this table. The turn is a jack of clubs. So far, so good for Keith. Keith hoping to fade 14 outs that would give Alex the winning hand and take about 2.5 million chips into his stack.
The river is the jack of diamonds, and Keith does win the pot with ace high.
A much needed double up for Keith. That's going to make this dynamic interesting here, 3-handed. Keith wants the short stack, still is the short stack, but now he's got over 2.5 million to play with. The one who hated that hand the most was Richard Monroe.
Absolutely, he was looking for that 2nd place jump.
Blinds continuing on at 60 and 120,000 with a 15,000 ante. Keith folds the button. Over to Richard now with 5 deuce offsuits in the small blind.
And just like the last hand, I think there are some hands you can fold from the small blind. I think 5 deuce is one of them.
And he's really going to wish he had folded it after he sees how this might shape out as Alex wakes up with pocket aces. Richard limps in from the small blind. Alex raises. I'm sure Richard sees that as just a young gun aggression kind of a move as he makes the call with 5 deuce.
And this is where, like I said, Richard could have just folded from the small blind. Now this hand costs him another 200K to see the flop, and it's going to get him in trouble. The flop is 6-5-3, couple of clubs.
So now Richard has middle pair. He also has a gut shot straight draw. He might be thinking he's pretty good if he has Alex just on nothing but pure heart and a big stack of chips. Richard leads out for $500,000 in chips, and Maria, it's like you can see the train coming right down the tracks, and there's nothing we can do to stop it.
It's practically a pot-sized bet on the flop, and I really don't like this play at all for Richard. I don't like him limping from the small blind pre. I don't like him calling Alex's raise pre, and I definitely don't like him betting pot size on the flop.
Well, Alex raises it to 1.5, and Richard goes all in. He obviously had Alex on absolutely nothing, and he is going to find Alex has all of it with pocket aces.
This is just where I feel like Richard compounded his mistakes. We're going to see if it pays off for him or not.
Well, he can hit a 4 and get a straight. He can hit a 5 for trips or a deuce for 2 pair. Let's see what the turn delivers.
The turn is an 8 of spades. That's not going to help Richard. He's still looking for those outs on the river. Otherwise, he'll be eliminated in 3rd place.
And we can hear Keith Love on the back of the rail. They're rooting for a face card. He wants to get heads up, and that is not going to happen as Richard Monroe gets amazingly lucky on the river, hits the deuce, and snaps the aces with 2 pair.
And he's just laughing about it, loving it. I mean, he got extremely lucky there to double up, and you got to feel for Alex. He played his hand great, and he just got very unlucky.
As we step away from the current poker action, let's step back into history a little bit with a poker life featuring Doyle Brunson, brought to us by our friends at Ace Play Poker.
This guy's still alive. It was in Lubbock, Texas, and they just came in on us, and they got the drop on us again. And they took all of our money, which wasn't a whole lot. But he had $100,000 in a bag. He was a bookmaker, and he was, I guess, paying off some customers or something. And they found it, and I can still remember this guy. Oh, hey, Santa Claus, look here, you know. And they took it, you know, and they took everybody's car keys and again, their billfolds and everything. And they took this guy's car keys and billfold. And as they left, said, "Now, sir, we're going to leave your car keys and your billfold right down the block, right in the middle of the street, so you can pick them up." And he said, "Okay."
What an exciting final table here in Black Hawk, Colorado at the Golden Gates Casino and Poker Parlor. First place tonight will go home with the championship as well as just over $235,000. Don't go anywhere. More final table actions coming up after these messages. You're watching the HPT. 3 players remain at this HPT final table, coming to you from the mountains in Black Hawk, Colorado at the Golden Gates Casino and Poker Parlor. Freddie and Maria will send it over to you.
And as you can see, after that huge hand, Richard and Alex basically switch places. Richard Monroe becomes our chip leader with just over 12 million. Alex has 7.4 million, and Keith Love is our short stack with 2.47 million.
These 3 gentlemen left at this monster-sized field of over 700 players. Now, all of them are guaranteed at least a little over $95,000, but the big money is up top at over $235,000. Keith Love, the short stack, looks down at ace-10. He makes the expected raise to $310,000.
I think that with Keith's stack size, he should just be min-raising at this point. He doesn't really need to commit more chips pre-flop than he needs to.
Richard folds. We're over to Alex, who has what I consider the single absolute best hand in poker, King Queen.
2.4. Well, I had 2.7.
I think Alex is asking for a count from Keith because he's thinking about putting them all in, and he does do exactly that. With King Queen, he's going to re-raise to put Keith all in. And now the decision's going to be on Keith. I think that ace-10 is a little too strong three-handed to fold.
And he does make the call. Alex with King Queen, Keith with ace-10 will have the lead.
I know which hand Fred's rooting for.
Obviously, I'm rooting for King Queen. Over 5 million in the pot.
The flop is 10-8-3 rainbow.
That pairs Keith, giving him top pair.
Alex is going to need to see a king or a queen in order to knock Keith out in third place.
The turn is a deuce, and now Alex in great danger of doubling up 2 players in as many hands.
And the river is the ace of spades, and Keith is going to double up. And now Alex, just after a few hands, has slipped from his comfortable chip position.
He's lost somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 or 9 million in the last 2 hands.
He can't be happy about that. You don't want to be running bad when you're three-handed to the win.
Alex hoping to right the ship and get the momentum back, while the other 2 players hoping they can get rid of him.
Looks down at queen 7 from the small blind, and he's going to raise it to 300,000.
Keith Love wakes up with pocket 6s. I just like saying his name, Keith Love. Should have been a rock star.
And Keith is just going to call with 6s.
Keith took second at this very event 2 years ago.
Well, there's only one place to go up from that. The flop is ace 4-10, a couple of hearts, and Alex is going to continue with a bet here of 350,000.
350,000 chip wager.
Question is, I think Keith did expect a continuation bet from Alex. I don't know if you flat call here, though, Maria. I think maybe you do a raise here to find out where those sixes really are at.
I don't think I like raising to find out where you're at. I think I would have just liked it if Keith 3-bet pre-flop, because I think that's a better way to determine what your opponent's hand strength is. At this point, he decides to raise to 900K, I think, to turn his hand into a bluff.
1.6 million.
And Alex, as you can see, doesn't have much to call with, and that's why he's not going to call.
He is raising, makes it 1.6 million, and Keith yells uncle, folds his hand, and the young gun here at the poker table scoops a nice pot to heal up that stack a little bit. Moving on, blind still at 60 and 120,000 with a 15,000 chip ante. The button is on Alex, which makes him first to act here pre-flop.
And it looks like he's going to raise it up from the button with Jack 5 of diamonds. Makes it 340,000.
10-7 goes into the muck from Keith. Richard with Queen 9 is going to make the call. So heads up going to the flop.
The flop is ace, ace, 4, rainbow. Neither player has hit this flop. Richard checks it over to Alex.
I don't even think check is in Alex's vocabulary. He is always firing here, as he should. Makes it 270,000, keeping the pressure on his opponents.
And I'm very impressed by Alex's composure after he took that terrible beat with the aces. He's managed to still stay aggressive and still keep his wits about him. And that's the most important part, is how do you rebound from a bad beat like that?
Which is a mark of not only experience, but maturity. Three-handed poker on our way to a championship from Blackhawk right after this. Thanks for coming back to the HPT, where over $235,000 is waiting for one of these players. Let's get right to the action.
Continuing play three-handed, things are going to get a lot more interesting considering there are no real short stacks. Keith Love at 3.7 million has over 30 big blinds, and as you can see, Richard Monroe is still our chip leader, so there's definitely going to be some post-flop play.
And when it comes to post-flop play, I think Alex might have the edge on these other two. He's the youngest at this final table, but he's played a lot of hands in his short poker career.
I think so far from what I've seen, I like Alex's game the best, and hopefully he's going to be able to take advantage of that.
Alex has almost 30,000 in career earnings, including 2 other wins here at Golden Gates Casino from some of the side events they do throughout the year. He also took 101st in the Millionaire Maker at the WSOP, cash for $7 grand there.
Richard has Queen 10 of clubs, and he's going to raise it to 325,000 from the button. Alex folds from the small blind.
And Keith is going to make the call with gap connectors here.
He's dominated on the clubs, but with a flop of 9-5-8, he's going to pull into the lead with a pair of eights.
He's got second pair here. Both players have a gut shot straight draw. Richard has the higher straight draw. Keith fires out 225,000.
Richard's going to raise to 650,000. And this is where I don't like donk betting on certain board textures, because it's all about playing huge pots when you're not quite sure where you're at. And that's why I think players need to start being more comfortable with checking from out of position and then reevaluating.
The turn brings the deuce of hearts. No help to these players. Third heart might make it a little bit scary. Not to Keith, though. He's going to bet out 600,000.
And now I'm not sure if Keith even knows what his bet signifies. I'm not sure if he's turning his pair and a gut shot into a bluff, trying to represent the flush, or if he just thinks that Richard's going to check behind and he wants to get some value from his middle pair.
Well, the river brings the queen of hearts. That gives Richard the best hand with top pair, but it also brings the fourth heart. I think a good-sized bet here from Keith might get Richard off the hand.
I think he needs at least a little over half pot if he wants to get Richard off this hand. I'm not even sure why Richard called the bet on the turn, but Keith bets 850,000, and although there are 4 hearts out there, Richard has a lot of chips, and I feel like he might just stick in a call here.
850,000 chip bet.
Well, he's grabbing for chips and not his cards. You might be right, Maria. He looks him up and he's going to find that he has the winner.
Pair of eights.
Keith says meekishly, I have a pair of eights. That's all I got. And he is going to learn he just got rivered. Yeah, Keith's not happy about that. As they say, it's better to be lucky than it is to be good in this game. And Richard enjoying the luck part as we continue on at 1,600, 20,000 with a 15,000 chip ante. This time it's pocket deuces for Richard.
Richard looks like he's going to come in for a raise on the button here with deuces.
325.
Makes it 325,000. Alex looks down at ace-3. He folds. Now over to Keith.
All in.
I'm not sure what he's got. Oh, there it is. Ace-3. He's going to go all in.
And I think that's definitely a shove there by Keith with 10 big blinds. And it's 840,000 more to Richard to call, and I don't think that against Keith's stack, Richard can raise fold this hand, although he obviously doesn't like it. I'm not really sure what Richard's thinking about. He has a pair, he raised, Keith went all in for 10 big blinds. It's a very standard call situation, and he knows that at best he's flipping, but you can't really make it 325,000 and not call 840,000.
You can't just leave your soldiers alone out there on the battlefield. They need some backup, and Richard's going to give it to them. He is going to get him in. He makes the call. He's going to find out that Keith, surprisingly, has 2 overcards.
And the flop is 6-8-4, 2 clubs.
Reminds me of you.
The flop is great for Keith's hand. It gives him a ton of outs. He's got 2 live cards and a club draw.
5 doesn't give it to you. Doesn't it? No, it almost gives it to me, though.
Big club draw now.
The turn is the 9 of hearts. It's not what Keith was looking for, but he still has 1 more card to come.
An ace, a 3, or a club to keep Keith alive is not going to happen. It brings the 10 of diamonds.
Sometimes the more outs you have, the harder it is to hit. And Richard Monroe is going to eliminate Keith Love in 3rd place. Let's hear what he has to say.
I think I played fine. Few hands I would have played differently. I got a little over aggressive on that I wish I wouldn't have taken shots on, but overall I think I played fine. Getting the top 3 is really important in tournaments for cash outs, so that's, you know, the goals going in are make the money, make the final table, make the top 3. Of course I would have liked to have won.
It's been a great week of poker here at Black Hawk, Colorado at the Golden Gates Casino and Poker Parlor. We started with over 700 players, and when we come back, we've got it down to our final 2. Don't go too far. This is going to be exciting. You're watching the HPT.
Thanks for coming back to the HPT. Well, here we are, 716 players. Now looks like 2 mano y mano for the championship. Let's get back to the floor.
Richard Monroe just increased his chip lead a little bit, and now he's nearing 16 million, but Alex still has a lot of play left in his stack, and maybe he'll turn this around.
Alex certainly has the game to turn this around. He needs a little bit of luck, or at least take some of that luck away from Richard, as he has been walking on water the last hour or so.
Action starts again with Alex on the button here.
All right, let's start with Alex.
And as expected, Alex is going to raise. This time he has a good hand, pocket 8s. Any pair is gold and heads up, isn't it?
It's definitely gold heads up, but it looks like Richard is the golden boy here as he wakes up with queens heads up.
What a cooler this is for Alex. So hard to get dealt a pair. You get dealt a pair heads up and your opponent gets a bigger pair? I mean, what are the odds of that?
Luckily, Alex might be able to get away from this depending on what the flop comes, because Richard chose to slow play this pre-flop.
Richard checks his big pair over to Alex, the pre-flop raiser, on a 4 ace 5 flop with 2 clubs.
And I think Alex might check back here. I think that's a good check back. And now Richard might just let Alex get off cheap here with this big pair cooler.
Richard's going to try to get some money from Alex now as he bets 500,000 on the turn.
Just another big bet from Richard here on the turn. Almost pot size again, and I just don't like that sizing for extracting value.
And Alex doesn't look like he's going anywhere. He is going to raise it, makes it 1.2 million.
And I like that play a lot better than just calling. Now it puts Richard in a tough spot because, as you can see, there's an overcard to his pair, but Richard is just not a believer, and he's going to call the raise. And now the river is the 10 of spades, and I think that handcuffs Alex a little bit for a river bet. Richard is going to check, Alex is going to check behind, and Richard's going to show down the best hand with queens and tens.
And Alex has got to be thinking, I just can't beat this guy right now. He always has a hand, or he always makes a hand.
Luckily, it could have cost him all his chips pre-flop, though, so maybe it worked out for the best.
Blinds continuing here, heads up at 80 and 160,000 with a 20,000 chip ante. This time Alex has connector cards on the button, or small blind when we're heads up pre-flop. He's going to make it 320,000 to go.
Richard looks down at 5-4 offsuit, and he's going to make the call. The flop is 5-7-10 with a couple of spades. Richard has bottom pair. Alex has middle pair. Richard decides to lead into Alex with 350,000. And I'm sure by this point, Alex has picked up on some of Richard's betting tendencies. And also, the donk bet doesn't work as well in heads-up play. I think you can always expect to get floated or get raised when you bet into the pre-flop raiser heads up.
Alex makes the call with the better hand. Here comes the turn.
Turn is the 4 diamonds, and Richard has turned 2 pair, but Alex now has an open-ended straight draw to go with his middle pair.
That's a monster hand in heads up, an open-ended draw with middle pair. But he is running into a chainsaw with Richard's 2 pair. Richard's going to bet out almost $1 million in chips.
Now I think Alex isn't sure what he wants to do here. Should he semi-bluff with his pair and a straight draw? And that is what he decided to do. He's going to move all in with his pair and his open-ended straight draw. He's going to get called by Richard with 2 pair, I'm sure.
And you can't blame either player for doing this. Obviously, Richard's going to call with 2 pair. Alex's move all in with the draw and the pair seems perfectly in line to me.
And we'll just see if Richard's 2 pair is going to hold now, and he'll become our next champion.
A 6, a 3, or an 8 for Alex. Otherwise, Richard Monroe is our new champion.
And the river is the queen of diamonds, and Richard has become our newest HPT champion here at Golden Gates, eliminating Alex Greenblatt in second place.
And it's a bittersweet end of this final table for Alex. He was dominating at one point. Now he is the bridesmaid. He's down with James Larson to hear what he has to say.
All right, thanks, guys. Now joined with the second place finisher, Alex. And Alex, I just first got to say congratulations, but how do you think you played at this final table? A little tough at the end.
It was a little tough at the end. I think I played really well. Maybe could have played some hands slower to avoid, 20 big blind flips. But on the whole, I, had a really good chance to have almost all the chips in play and got unlucky.
Pleasure having you at this final table. That is Alex, our second place finisher. And we will send it back over to Maria and Fred Bevel.
What a week it has been here at the Golden Gates Casino in Black Hawk, Colorado. These folks always give us a great time, and the players always give us a great final table. Out of 716 players, 1 remains, and that man is Richard Monroe. Over $235,000 is going into his bank account. He's down on the floor with James Larson.
All right, well, we are now joined by our newest HPT champion. Do me a favor, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the one, the only, Mr. Rich Monroe. All right, Rich, kind of a crazy final table, up, down, seesaw. Did you really think you'd be standing here with me with all the chips doing this interview at the end of the day?
No way. These players are much better than I am, I believe. And I don't frankly play that much, so I did come into this tournament with the thought of really playing very tight, very, snug poker. And usually I have some bad luck and I get sucked out on, and it didn't happen. If I went in with the best hand at 1, I made 1 suck out the entire tournament. It was at the right time against the aces, but it's pretty amazing. Something to show.
We'll start with a handshake. Give it up, everybody, for Richard Monroe. He is our newest HPT champion. He is going home with the cash and the title. We want to thank everybody here at the Golden Gates Casino and Poker Parlor here in Black Hawk, Colorado, our 5th consecutive $1 million prize pool.
Thank you, James, and congratulations again to Richard Monroe. Now, Maria, it was a grind as we got shorthanded down to this championship. What was your take on today's play?
I think once the players started getting a little settled in, they felt more comfortable, and the pace of the play definitely picked up, which is what I wanted to see. When it got down to heads up, I really enjoyed watching Alex mix it up, but unfortunately, it just wasn't his day. The cards went Richard Monroe's way, and he is our newest HPT champion.
He is indeed, and going home with almost $236,000. That is huge. Now, do you think you have what it takes to play on the worldwide stage for unreal money on the HPT? Well, then log on to HPT Poker and find an event near you. We tend to have a lot of fun. For Maria Ho and James Larson, I'm Fred Bevel. We'll see you next time right here on the HPT.